Inside, the lights are low. This isn't your typical lounge. This is where the forgotten tales gather, where the shadows have their say. We'll talk of monsters in the woods, of killers with a motive and lights in the sky, and ghosts in the attic. Come into the waiting room, please.
All right. Tonight we have a ghost hunter named Sage Gatto. But before I talk about him, I'm going to go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves. Just say your name, a little bio on who you are, so Sage knows who we are. Phil, I'll let you start.
Hey, Sage. My name is Phil DeSaro. I produce and record the podcast. Ex-Marine. Have 2 books out, 2 documentaries under my belt. I work in as an IT professional for the past 30-something years. Then maybe someday I'll be retired, but not quite yet. I want to be like Paul someday. So, anyways, that's it for me. I'll pass it on.
All right. And the next one is Steve Ward, aka the Space Ranger.
Yeah, I'll have to change that someday. Sometimes I'm known as the Mothman guy. I work at the Mothman Museum part-time, greeting people and answering questions, although it is Jeff Walmsley is the man that has founded the Mothman Museum. I have been following the Mothman since November 15th of 1966, when it first hit the wire services all over the world. I was in junior high school in Michigan at the time. But that first sighting where it chased the 2 couples down Route 62 hit the wire services all over the world. So ever since then, I have been following John Keel and different aspects of the paranormal. I served aboard a fast attack submarine in the Navy for a few years. And so I was not only a squid, I was a bubblehead. And I guess that's enough.
Well, thank you, Steve. And as for myself, Sage, I'm a paranormal investigator, podcaster right here on the Waiting Room podcast. I was in the Army. I've been on some documentaries. I write books. I write articles for various magazines. I do a lot of stuff, so I keep myself busy. So, Sage, what got you interested in the paranormal?
Me personally, I grew up in a haunted house. Growing up, being around my grandfather all the time, the house was haunted. My grandmother passed before I was even born, and little did I know that her spirit stayed in that house, with my grandfather, until he just passed last February. We feel like they both kind of like moved on and like just come and go now. But just like always growing up, like if I would go down into like the basement, the hair on my neck would stand up, and I'd be like, "That's really creepy. Like, what's going on?" Little did I know until much later in my life that I found out that it was just my grandma. But ever since I had that experience as a child, I've just been hooked and wanted to learn more.
And how did you get this group? What's the name of your group?
Steel City Ghost Chasers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. And you're the lead investigator. You're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And my sister lives right now in Somerset, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, it's not too far from me.
So in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, what are some of the haunted locations you've been to?
For around us, it's actually quite tough to get into a lot of these places because they're all privately owned. Either don't want to be involved or you just can't investigate there, which is awful. But I've frequented Hillview Manor in Newcastle quite regularly. I've been there probably close to 20 times. It's one of my favorite locations, and it's convenient to be only an hour and a half from. Other than that, I've gone to investigate the Kerry blast furnaces. Those the steel mill that helped basically rebuild the country. Those are really the only big 2 like in the Pittsburgh region. I've done some small stuff like cemeteries and odd end places I've been able to get into, but Hillview Manor and Kerry blast furnace are the 2 notable ones in Pittsburgh.
Well, that's cool. Have you since my sister lives in Somerset, I've never been there. Is that place pretty haunted? Have you been down there?
Somerset's, what we would consider the middle of nowhere up here in Pennsylvania. There's not really much out that way, but granted, I'm sure if I looked harder, I'm sure you could find somewhere something. Sure, I've been investigating regularly since 2021, and I've been everywhere from Mississippi all the way to New Jersey. So
You know what she's telling me? No, I got a message from her today. She was saying how cold it was.
yes,
Oh, jeez.
yes, our wind chill was -2 today.
And she says in February she's moving back to Florida.
I don't blame her at all.
She couldn't stand it. Yeah, and Phil there, he's from Florida. So yeah. Well, that's cool. What are some of the things that what's some of your best evidence when you go on these investigations?
It all depends on what I'm looking for. So, I should have mentioned before, I was raised a psychic medium. I've been working along with the spirit world, for the vast majority of my life. And just recently, I learned how to kind of tie what I'm learning as through mediumship in with what I'm doing as far as investigating goes. And I wish it was something I could have documented, but one of my favorite things as of late, a good friend of mine reached out to me. She was going to a haunted movie theater out in Altoona, PA, and she wanted me to kind of tap in and see if I can, figure anything out before she went. And the first thing I kept seeing was a little girl in like a white dress and like kind of curly blonde hair. And I kept telling her, I was like, I keep hearing the name Emily. And she was like, okay, I'll have to write that down and remember that. And then she called me like 4 or 5 hours later and she goes, you're not going to believe this. I was like, what? She goes, we just got a hold of a little girl named Emmeline and she's only 8 years old. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So I guess that was accurate.
Huh.
It's like just random validation like that.
So you yourself is a psychic medium?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. What do you think about orbs?
It's a touchy subject for me whenever you're taking pictures. It's very hard to know what that is actually in that picture because any form of electronic device could cause any form of interference. But as far as your own eyes go, I mean, your eyes don't project different light spectrums than a camera does, and nothing that your light coming out of your eyes can reflect. So if you physically see some form of energy movement kind of float around or shift in a way that is not normal, it's kind of hard to not want to believe that that was some form of spirit entity. But as far as like when you're just taking pictures and all sorts of balls floating around, I kind of lean towards the bug or dust anomaly.
Sage, here's something I gotta tell you. You're talking about Emily, the ghost, this little girl. Well,
Yeah.
I have a Emily story too, a story that Phil and Zandi's heard 1,000 times, but I'm gonna say it again. With orbs, you're right. They could be almost anything. It could be dust, it could be lint, it could be skin flakes, dewdrops, light refractions, you name it. But what happened is we did a case in which the female ghost was named Emily, and she was draining the energy from the occupants.
Oh wow.
And one of my investigators goes, Paul, I got to sit down. He goes, I'm about ready to faint. And he goes, I'm feeling dizzy, my vertigo and everything is off balance. I said, relax. I said, I said, I wonder if Emily's doing that to you because she's known to drain the energy off the occupants. Right. So I said, Emily, if you're listening to me, sit on his lap. So 3 of us take a picture and there's an orb hovering over his lap. That showed intelligent movement.
Absolutely.
I said, Emily, if you're listening to me again, kiss him on the lips. And then we got an orb hovering on his lips.
Yep.
So I said, that's intelligent. That was something I can deem as paranormal. I mean,
yes,
that showed intelligence, that intelligent movement. So now when I go to an investigation, and if the house is really haunted, I'll place my hand against the wall. I say, appear by my hand. and I'll get an orb on my hand.
And that's one of those things too, because when you see the pictures of them, they almost look like it's a ball of electricity. You could see like all the strains of electricity coming out of it, and that's how like you caught something. It's not just a hollow, just white dot that you just picked up on your photo.
Yeah. How many people are on your team?
So I had originally 6 people going around with me to Hillview, just to basically learn and try to investigate. And then after that, they all kind of fell loss of interest of wanting to travel and see new places. So now I just basically travel around, just my girlfriend and I, and we, try to hit up different places, that we can. For the most part, I'm a one-man show. I've been kind of focusing on some personal research projects because I tie mediumship in with history. I'm a big history nut, so I've been working hand in hand with my passion and tying it into the paranormal as well.
No, that's fantastic. Oh, and let me, one of our panel members showed up, the Paranormal Soul Brother. Paranormal Soul Brother, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, he said.
I'm really like the most down brother you're gonna meet, but I get teased a lot for the paranormal. I've been into it since I've been a kid, and basically I'm like Chris Brown, a James Brown Ghostbuster, really. But seriously, like UFOs, I mean, modalities, contacting, just doing deep dives, whether it be matter, whether it be paradigm, be anything. I've always been into it. So I went to UC Berkeley, born the same day as Einstein. So I'm supposed to be smart, they say, but I like just wacky stuff. I don't like well, I do a lot of math, but I like wacky stuff more than Einstein.
It's more fun.
That's me, man. Huh?
It's more fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's way more. I mean, it's stuff. But I do like when he was talking about love, and like that being like the key other than nuclear power. But that's me. But yeah. So in a nutshell, yeah, I'm just a nutty guy up here in the Bay Area, man.
There you go.
Investigate.
And if Sage, if you're ever towards West Virginia, and stop by to see Steve Ward over there, because he's the information jockey over at the Mothman Museum.
Yeah, I've driven by it hundreds of times going down, West Virginia and investigating in West Virginia.
You got to stop, especially I'm usually there Saturday afternoons.
Okay.
Just to like I say, greet people. And the thing is, the young kids that work there, they don't know as much as I do, just because I'm old, So, and it is so much fun. I mean, they pay me to do this, and
Yes.
just don't tell anybody that I would pay them. And so and of course there's the classic Mothman statue standing next to the museum, and my MO is to take people out there, and if the whole family wants a picture taken, they don't have to send a kid out they don't like to take the picture. I can get the whole family. And then, of course, I will take them around behind the statue to introduce them to what they call the shiny hiney. Now, see, a lot of people, the tragedy is a lot of people go home and they miss the shiny hiney. And that's, there's also a dreaded, well, maybe a mannequin in black, maybe not a man in black, in the second story window watching you. So people see that and they freak out. So it's, and we have 5 documentaries going at the same time. Jeff Wamsley, he was 5 and 6 years old when all this happened. So, and he was 6 years old in the basement of playing with his toys way up on 30th Street when the bridge collapsed, and he heard the noise that far away. So anyway, it's great to be part of that. I moved down from Michigan a few years ago, and just to follow up on the ghost hunting a little bit. I don't do a lot of ghost hunting, but some years back I was with a group of people. A couple of them were very good at capturing EVPs, and so we were at the point where the Silver Bridge used to run, where it collapsed, and so they were looking to contact any of the spirits there, and I have to say they were very respectful. They weren't flippant about this at all. They were just very respectful because of the event that happened. 46 people lost their lives. And so,
right.
And I just have to say my one possible experience was one of our team that Emily set up the flashlight the way they do on TV, right? Was it just on the verge of going on? Anyway, so all that we didn't know it. So all of a sudden the flashlight goes on and it's laying there on the shoreline. And so and then it went off. And so we start stamping our feet to see if the vibration does it or whatever. Nothing. So I thought, well, I've seen enough of these shows. I know what to do, right? So I said, well, if there's anybody here, would you please turn the flashlight on the count of three? You know, 1, 2, 3, bang. Comes on for 3 beats and then goes off.
Wow.
And I said, can I say holy expletive now? And everybody kind of laughed. Later on, one of the guys went through the tape and he said this was not a Class A EVP, but he thinks he heard a voice say after I said holy expletive, little baby, as if one of the spirits was calling me out, calling me a little weenie, you know. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my one brush with EVPs. And then one other quick thing about the orb thing. Now, obviously, a lot of them are just dust orbs and so forth. But there was a man named Bob Lander. He used to have a little shop there in the corner. He's no longer with us. Really good guy. And he used to take people out to the what they call the TNT area, 9 miles north of Point Pleasant, where the Mothman was seen a few times back in the 60s.
Mhm.
And he would take people out without flashlights, and he'd take them on a tour, and their eyes would adjust. And this is the creepy area where the old bunkers are, where they used to store explosives and so forth. Well, they captured an orb, and when you see it, it just looked like a little pinpoint of light. And so when I was in his shop one time, he showed us the generation of blowing this up slowly over a period of time. Now, remember, this area was a Native American burial ground, this whole area. And so he goes through these images, and good Lord, the more he went through, it looked like a Native American face. I mean, you could see the detail, you could see the cheekbones, and I don't think it was, imagination. So for what that's worth, it was really kind of stunning to me to see
Right.
that.
Yeah, one of my most kind of jaw-dropping pictures was a couple of years ago. We went to White Hill Mansion in New Jersey. It's directly across the Delaware River from Philadelphia, and I did my fair share of research on it because I'm a history nut. I got to know the ins and outs, and found out the house was actually used as a command post for the British Army during the Battle of Trenton. Mind you, this house has been around since the 1740s. It's old. And we were down in the bar area, which was a speakeasy during Prohibition, and my girlfriend was standing kind of parallel to the door to the tunnel area, where there's the tunnels they lead down to the river, and she kept seeing somebody walking around out of the corner of her eye because I kept seeing her, kind of do these little peeks. So I went around the bar to where it made an L shape and just started snapping photos down the hallway, and my surprise, in the very first picture was a British officer standing there resting on the hilt of a sword.
Holy cow.
Whoa.
Yeah. See, it's stuff like that that's too synchronistic. We're because I was listening to I was listening to you when you said you saw the Indian face, but what he's saying, when you see things like that, you have to really stick by it and really take it in, because later on you're gonna keep second guessing yourself, and even other people will. But when you have facts he's at a place where would be British soldiers, and then he happens to see one, it's too much matching for it to be, as you go in your mind and try to do your checklist. So I think it's really cool that you got to see, things that correlate with it, so you can say, yeah, this is what it is for real, and not later on trip your stuff out.
Oh yeah, and believe me, I did that a lot. I always want to believe I capture something. I practically live in Gettysburg, biggest Civil War nut, and every time I go there, it's just I just pray that one of these days I'll just get something in my in a picture. But
Yeah.
it's just funny because
you get one, and then if you get that one good one, and then you're chasing, you want to you want more, or if you get a photo and you lose it or something. But I want to ask you about this too. Have you noticed, and everybody on the panel, recently people have gotten the new home security systems. Well, they're the same ones, but they put AI on everything now, right? Yep. So now AI it'll tell you hey, there's a person walking, and there's a person walking in your house, and you're like, okay, is it tripping or not? We'll see the cat and say the cat's a raccoon, or the other says a beast, kind of appropriate things. But it's like my sworn brother, he was he was in the war and everything. He doesn't trip on much, but he's like, man, look at this. Looks like a person, but the AI was telling him it was there, but it actually looks like it is. So I'm wondering if a lot of people are gonna start, seeing that. If you guys experienced that.
I mean, I personally haven't experienced anything like that. We don't have any security, cameras, but just me being
Yeah.
a psychic medium, I'm just so used to ghosts being around. I don't bat an eye.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You don't need any equipment like that.
Yeah, I don't need equipment. I have every piece of equipment you can imagine, but I hardly use it. It's hilarious. But it just like for me, my story like kind of ties with the Civil War. Just been always been my passion, and I traveled to close to 17 battlefields now from the Civil War, and everyone I go
Yeah.
to, I end up communicating with at least a handful of soldiers that fought at that said battle, and nine times
Have
out
you
of
met
ten,
your ancestors at all? Not to interrupt you. Do you feel like you've met any of your ancestors?
oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
And it's like it's funny you asked that because I was actually adopted at birth in a closed adoption, so I have zero.
Right.
There's zero information on my birth parents or my bloodline or
That's
anything. But there's certain times, certain dreams, certain visions where I really start to feel like there's things that are coming together in a few, like in a full circle, and I'll sit and do like media
wow.
readings on it and just ask like the spirit world, like connect me, with ancestors. Who am I in line with? And then all of a sudden, like kind of things
Wow.
start coming to me and just like make sense. But I'm like trying to find the way to DNA prove it. You know what I mean? It's like I believe,
Yeah,
but
with epigenetics.
how do I prove it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, just to chime in with you. No, no, keep going. But the epigenetics is what got me into it because they
Mhm.
kept telling us, when I see, people, talk over my ancestors, I used to be like Hooga Booga, but really the electrical, the connection, the epigenetics that's proven that it's in your
Mhm.
DNA and that emotional content is there, that put me on a whole different path. So I'm with you there. And as far as you being my mother was a foster child, so I'm her only blood relative. So I know what that's like. But so probably when you
Mhm.
have a kid, man, that kid's gonna have so much love, man, if you don't already have one. But
Yep.
but shout out to you there
Absolutely.
because she was a foster child.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just funny you mentioned uh, the ancestors. I sit and talk to the soldiers, and they end up
Yeah.
coming home with me. I don't care. They follow me. They protect me. I protect them, and I can. In my house, it's quite literally like a Civil War encampment. Like they're always coming and going. It's hilarious. But, they've actually
Yeah.
helped in a way that I never imagined. Because I sit and try wanting to learn who they are, and the second I get a name, I'll cross reference it with our soldier.
I don't know if you knew Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She's
Uh-uh.
another great researcher that's no longer with us.
Right, right, right. Okay.
Very prolific author. She was in Waverly Hills Sanatorium along, I forget who the other investigator was, but they're there in the dark, when they would do their investigations, yet they don't use flashlights or whatever. And
Yep.
he said, Rosemary, do you see what I see? And she said, yeah, it looks like a gray. They saw what looked like an alien gray in supposedly a haunted sanatorium, suggesting that the intersection between I don't know,
Yeah.
the different types of life forms. I mean, we tend to want to put things in categories, but if what they saw was real, then this is something that's kind of breaks up the paradigm a bit. Have you ever encountered anything what you might call ET or extra dimensional or something beyond?
Yeah.
Uh,
Good
you
question.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually have. It's kind of a bizarre story, and kind of people say I'm crazy all the time, but that's fine.
Well, they're
We
connected.
were actually out urban exploring. There was a old mine that blew up near me in like 1908 or 1910. It was a very long time ago, but it ended up killing over 160 people or something. It was the worst mining accident in modern history. Actually, the reason why we enforce so much safety measures of mining now, and the site's still there. Like they have the mine like all boarded up, but like the actual like the building connected with are still there. And my friend asked me if I wanted to go one night. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm down. Like, that sounds really cool. Little did I know it's off a road that's in the middle of Timbuktu. And we had to walk down like a dirt path down to a walking trail, walk probably like a quarter mile down that said trail, down another dirt path, and then voila, you're there. And we're in the middle of the woods. It's the middle of the night. I was like, what are we doing here? But we were, in search of, investigating, seeing what we can find. And at one point, we were in the main building of this, mining complex. And I had, a couple of yes no devices, REM pods, all that fun stuff set up. And we, like, looked at each other like, what is making that noise?
Yeah.
There's no chance that someone's coming down the trail at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And it got louder and louder as it, progressively got closer. And as it got closer, we could see like a glowing light coming down the trail that almost looked like a headlight of some sort. And we were like, what is happening? But as it got closer, all of our equipment started to malfunction, and the yes no devices started flashing green, red, green, red, green, red. Our REM pod started like flashing, but not making any noises. And our my one friend was live on TikTok at the time, and his live just like froze and like cut out. And we're all like looking at each other like, what's happening? And I look up, and it's like almost eye level with us, and it was like a giant wheel that was rotating counterclockwise, and you could see like little cutouts around it, like almost looked like light bulbs, but they weren't, like they were glowing, but not
Wow.
emitting any
Wow.
light. And it was spinning and like kind of stopped, was like, like checking us out. And when we all looked at it and looked at each other, then looked back at it, before we could even open our mouth, it literally just shot off into the light and was gone. And the second it shut
Wow.
off, all of our equipment went back to normal. And we just
That's a
like looked at
beautiful
each other
sighting.
like, what
Wow.
the hell was that?
Gentlemen,
That is cool as hell. Oh no, it's recording right now though. It's recording. Man, I'm not surprised because most people, from my experience as a paranormal investigator, I mean, like 80% or 70% of the time, I'm going to ask them that. And I know 60, 70% of the time they've had some paranormal experience. But I notice a lot of people, if they're locked into the ghost thing, they're not really thinking about that, or it's the vice versa. But to me, like there's so much mixed. I mean, with the quantum,
Yep.
theories and the physics and everything that they have out there. I mean, with atoms that have, no spin, have some spin. I mean, it's out in the open now that, the stuff that we thought was magic, are crazy. I mean, it's all possible. It's just
Yep.
the angle, or it's a math angle, or it's a possibility. But so most people that I've, like say yourself, I wouldn't be surprised if you have plenty more, if you're going to have more, and if maybe you had some you probably didn't even think about. You ever had missing time? Have you ever
Oh
had
yeah.
any missing time?
Yep. I almost every battlefield I go to, because I dabble with past life stuff and like kind of learn like where my soul came from, and even before that life, where was I then?
Wow.
And
Okay.
because the surprising thing is, and kind of far fetched it would be to the normal person, is when you get a proper reading done and you learn about where your soul came from, it explains so much onto why you yourself do some of the things that you do today. you know
Yeah.
it's just like I've always been like kind of like an old soul, and like kind of always like, oh, I'd rather have a candle to light up the room instead of flipping the light switch, or like even like the Civil War, like why I was always obsessed with the Civil War as a child, and always drawn to learn about the Irish and the Irish immigrants at the war and the Irish Brigade, and even the Southern regiments that were predominantly Irish, throughout the South. Why I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
always drawn to learning about that when I had no reason to, and kind of ties to what we were talking about before. I've learned that the story that I was told from the spirit world is I have 5 direct ancestors that fought in the Civil War, 3 of which fought in the Irish Brigade. And I
and
was just kind
do you
of, wow.
think you're reincarnated?
I do. I've learned about a past life that I was a colonel of the 10th Tennessee in the Civil War, and I'm starting to piece that story together and kind of make it to like a logical thing where I can break down and explain to people like how everything came to be. And it actually all kind of started by visiting a battlefield, unbeknownst to me, that was the very first battle that I was involved in. And it was the Battle of Murfreesboro at Stones River in Tennessee. And when I visited there, and never been there before in my life before I've been there, and I got to like a certain part of the battlefield, and it was almost like deja vu. Like I've been here before. Like I recognize the land and the layout, and like I can like almost
Wow.
remember where the troops were kind of positioned. And I was like kind of just looking around. I was like, this is really strange. Like I've never been here before. How do I know this? And never really thought twice about it until I got home and had a very detailed dream of me being in that battle. And it was bizarre because it all started off of a gun I saw at an antique shop in Gettysburg online, and like I was like looking at it, like almost like blanked out and like lost time for a second. And when I was looking
Wow.
at the picture, it kind of transformed to a vision, and it was me looking down at my hand holding that exact gun or model gun. And then when I looked, like whenever like everything came to, I could see my uniform and I could see that, where I was standing, at that battlefield. And as I was like looking around, like you can literally see the battle like ensuing and hearing people screaming and the shots going off, cannons going off. And I was just like, holy smokes, like I really was there. Because like it was like I was
Wow.
watching it through my own eyes. And like I once like it ended, I immediately shot up and grabbed a notebook and started writing down what I saw. I was like, that is insane. It's absolutely insane.
We look at another kind,
Somebody's going to touch.
another kind of left field question.
Mhm.
There are some Bigfoot reports
Mhm.
that are much more ghost-like than flesh and blood. You know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
wonder if you've ever encountered anything like that personally, or know of any experiences like that that would suggest that some of these are something other than a simply unknown animal.
I kind of ties in with the UFO story, the same location. I've kind of learned about skinwalkers just because I've always heard the story, the lore, and what a skinwalker is, what are the signs. Just because I like to go and explore places, like I'd like to know just in case I do encounter something that's not expected. What do I
Right.
look for? And I've, like there's, I'm sure you guys all know the ins and outs of what they are. But that night we kept hearing almost like a howling noise that didn't sound like any wolf or coyote I've ever heard, and it certainly didn't sound like a dog. And then it kind of like turned to like almost like a growling howl. And I was like focused on that because I was like, this we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no way that this is just like random. Because like there was a handful of houses that you could see like kind of on the horizon. You can see like their porch lights. So like it was like there were houses, but like it's primarily just all woods. So when we started hearing that, I was like, that's no dog. And I know darn well that ain't a coyote or a wolf. And when I was like trying to piece it together in my mind, I looked at my friend. He goes, do you think it is what I think it is? I said, yeah, I'm not saying the word, but I think I know what it is too.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I think it's time to leave. I was like, I agree. So I
Well,
didn't want to stick around
I,
to
I
find
have to I have to say to Steve, I'm retired from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I talk to many hunters, and a lot of hunters, surprisingly, have encountered Bigfoot at some point of time in their life.
Mhm.
This one hunter told me that his grandfather in 1968 encountered a Bigfoot, and he shot at it, and it blew up into sparks.
Whoa.
So that tells me it's probably an interdimensional type creature that can go from matter to energy, energy into matter. E equals mc square, Einstein's theory that energy can go to matter, matter in energy. So I don't
And Stan Gordon, who wrote Silent Invasion, great investigator in Pennsylvania. He covered the bizarre series of Bigfoot and UFO reports in 73 and 74 in Southwest Pennsylvania. And one of the many reports, there was a woman that talked about, she heard this commotion on her porch, thought the dogs were getting into her garbage again. She walks out of the porch. She'd never heard of a Bigfoot, so she called this thing a big gorilla. So she goes out there, and this thing, its arms go way up like this. She shoots it. She was just going to use the shotgun to scare the dogs away. So she shoots this thing point blank and disappears in a flash of light. And there are many other really bizarre occurrences
Yeah.
in conjunction with UFOs or strange lights and it's sort of almost like counterfeit Bigfoot creatures. You look
Yeah.
at some of the ones in the Northwest, it's almost like they could be flesh and blood and leave footprints, but some of these other ones are more apparitional.
That
Hey,
must be.
gentlemen, hold your thought. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and you'll get a second link to get back on the show to finish up this interview.
Okay.
So it's going to shut down in about 2 minutes.
All right.
Let's go. When we come back, we got it. Where he left off on that. That's
yeah,
really,
with Steve. Yeah.
the fake Bigfoot are the real Bigfoots. Yeah, because even with the
Okay.
Skinwalker, you know, they have the original wolf that were turning into the blue.
They just
blue.
the paranormal just doesn't make it easy, you know.
No, it doesn't.
But you know, Skinwalker Ranch, when those big giant wolf, when they would go into the bushes, they would turn into a blue, like a piece of blue plastic or something that they saw. It was like not an explosion, but it was the energy transfer, seemed like.
People who say they see UFOs later on sometimes see Bigfoot, or if they see Bigfoot, then they see UFOs.
Yeah, I'd like to pursue that when we come back.
Yes. We're talking about Robert Bingham. He showed me a lot of film of the Bigfoots and the little baby ones.
And we got 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Yeah, I'd like to pursue John Keel. Is the guy that
that's the man. That's the man right there.
Yes, and he's the guy I'd like to mention something about that'll tie all this together.
What? Ultra terrestrial. That's the guy that came up. He coined that phrase, right?
In another word, transmogrification.
Yeah, I've been using your words since the last broadcast when I told him.
Those are the only big words I know.
And I gave you credit. I said, hey, some words that we just learned and can't pronounce, transmogrification. Tim Swart, he laughed, man. He knew what I was
talking. That's how you impress the ladies. Throw those big words out, you know.
Okay, 36 seconds.
Right. Man, you got time right down there.
What's up, brother Phil?
Hey, one hunter I talked to, he claims that he saw a landed UFO and the Greys were working with Bigfoot.
And sometimes they see Bigfoot driving UFOs.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, where do they get their driver's license? That's what I want to know.
5, 4, 3, 2. I am going to go ahead and turn this over to Steve because he's right in the middle of talking about Bigfoot.
Okay, and John Keel had this great catchphrase. It was, ask the contactee what he had for breakfast. What he meant was, ask the experiencer what not just she literally had for breakfast, but find out all about that person. Because, like you pointed out, people that have one kind of experience, UFOs or whatever, have also seen a Bigfoot at some time or something like that. And so he found out that people had experiences throughout their entire life if you ask the right questions. Very quickly, a young lady contacted me on Facebook a few years ago from New Hampshire. She and her husband were standing out of their front porch. They saw these strange lights go over. All of a sudden, they're not standing next to each other anymore. It's a little bit lighter. They look up and see this giant black triangle brushing the tops of the trees and taking off. And at the time, it didn't register. They thought, oh, no big deal. They went back to bed. Later on, they thought, oh, that was weird. And they were missing time. So even before she had a breakthrough, I asked her a series of John Keel questions very quickly. So I found out that they were having classic haunting phenomena in the house. She had experienced a shadow person. Both her sons experienced orbs, one inside the house, one outside the windows. And then I asked her, I said, look, this is going to be a bizarre question, but have you ever seen anything like a Bigfoot or some kind of a animal you couldn't identify? And she said, well, no. And then she said, oh, wait a minute. My mother and sister-in-law both saw something near the property. This thing was seen twice. And it was something like a black panther standing on two legs. The point being that if I was frozen in the 1960s with just the ET hypothesis, I would have never known to ask these questions, and all this stuff would have been hidden under the surface. So there's a lot to people having multiple experiences, uh, because they are, there's something, I don't know, special about them or whatever. But anyway, that's John Keel was easily a century ahead of all of us when he was working through this.
Those targeted questions are very key in paranormal investigating as well. I always try to be as respectful as possible, whether it's I'm on a battlefield or at an haunted asylum. I kind of try to remember where I'm at. If I'm at a hospital, I'm not going to sit there and be like, "Well, how'd you die?" Or just be like that. Like, I might even just try cracking a joke, or just simply ask like just simple questions like, "How's the weather today?" Like kind of like you're talking to somebody that's living. Because I noticed that when you do that, they kind of are more keen to open up to you, and you're going to get more responses opposed to just coming in with the direct, hit them with the hard questions right off the bat.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Paul, we had a guest. You remember Renee? We investigated his house, him and his wife. He had the apartment, and he thought he was hearing like THX 36 he thought he was hearing a broadcast coming from his radio, but
I remember that one. Okay, yeah.
Well, he passed. Well, rest in peace to him. So, but before he did, he'd actually given me this other film, and this is like goes into what we were saying, from the paranormal to to the aliens, or to UFO, or to extraterrestrials, or whatever we want to say it is. But he gave me some film where him and his wife were sitting at the same place where we went over. They were sitting on the stairs, same stairs that we went that we used to get to his house. And so I knew the angles, and I could see the parking lot. So he had this, like, it was like at least 7 or 8 different colored, if you want to call them craft, whatever, because they were darting, then they would stop, and it'd be little tiny ones, almost like they were coming from somewhere else. Like they would light up like tingles, but they were solid objects, and then they go out, and it'd be like a red one, a blue one. I'll show it to you one day, Paul. And they're just looking at it, and she's like, "Well, what do you think it is?" She's really just, But then we did her house a second time after he passed. We had actually investigated. And she didn't mention anything about it then, but they gave me that footage, and it was more incredible than anything they told me about in their house. I still, I kept it because we were going to edit and use it for a show, but then the file is really big, and it's like so much in it. You don't even know where you want to cut it at. You just like want to keep watching it. But it goes again to that thing of everybody that Paul, usually when we investigate on the side, if we pull them to the side and say, "Hey, have you had these experiences?" They're intertwined. But what you were saying, Steve, about Keel, it's great when somebody takes time, they spend time, and they get to know stuff like that, and then they can put the information together where they can give it to you, you can learn. Because like our guest was saying, he had every piece of equipment. Like our guest was saying that he had every piece of equipment. Do you know that we had a guest on here that was telling us like the ratings, like what equipment basically is nothing. It's like, it's boo-boo. A lot of it, like they didn't put, Tim was talking about it too. A lot of people, they didn't put any, credence, and then ghost being the live energy from a living person as well. Talked about, those things.
Right.
And, but I'm sure, but Keel hit on all these things. I was thinking about his modalities, the way he saw how people were contacted, the different ways, the different sightings, all these. He went really in depth.
Yeah, the silent contactee aspect of the Mothman prophecies was really bizarre, and it goes to. Are you familiar with a book called The Hungry Ghosts by Joe Fisher?
I am.
No, I'm not.
This might Sage might be able to chime in on this. He and others worked through this particular medium for a period of time, and there's one supposed spirit came through Russell, and he was kind of like corralling all these other spirits and people, like a World War II pilot that was deceased, and so forth. And so they would get all this information coming through, And so Joe Fisher wanted to prove that this information was correct. And so he made the pilgrimage to England and to Greece, and you know, he had all this information, and he found out that some of it was just dead on accurate, and some of the information revealed couldn't have been known otherwise, and some of it was total nonsense. So that there was the trickster aspect in there. So I wonder, Sage, how do you are you concerned about that, or have you ever experienced anything like that where there is deception sometimes? I mean, you get you know straight on accurate information, and
Yep.
then you get some stuff that is just very deceptive.
Oh yeah, just about every single day. Because then, when I'm bored, I'll sit at home and try talking to the soldiers, see what new they want to tell me, what any new stories, any form of information I can get. And there's always new ones. I have a list of about 35 on my phone that I've actually found and documented them being who they say they are. I've found full muster rolls and military, you know,
Excellent.
forms and even from the 1860s, they're still out there if you know where to look. And I'm trying to build that list because I know there's hundreds that are here that come and go and want to talk. And there's sometimes that they'll cut and dry say, "Hey, my name is Joe," and I'll go online. I'll start asking questions and get a last name, and then get a regiment and then a company, and then what state they're from, and then I'll go on to the National Park Service and use their soldiers and sailors database and search the name, and we'll find a matching name to a matching regiment and company, and then we'll be able to pull up all their files from
Wow.
there and trace that this person that's talking to me right now is really who they say they are, and can prove that they did
Wow.
die in said battle in 1860 whatever. And it's a full circle and it's awesome. But then there's times where
Right.
they might not remember exactly all the details. I'm dealing with one right now that's hard of communication because I found out he ended up having a musket explode in his face. So he's a little bit hard of hearing. So when I try asking a question, I might, I'll ask like, what's your name? And he might hear it differently. And then I'm getting like, random answers. And I'm like, you're not helping me. Like, I have to remember that sometimes the spirit is,
But
still affected by the way that they went out as well.
well, there's a bit of a parallel with if you read the Mothman prophecies, or a lot of these contactees, they firmly believed they were in contact with some kind of a other intelligent space brother or whatever. And a lot of times they would get predictions or whatever. Sometimes it would come true, and sometimes it was just nonsense. So they had to be very careful about what you were believing, and even all the way up to the predictions of this disaster on the Ohio River when the Silver Bridge fell. There was kind of a deception there about what was going on. So I just would caution people to do what you're doing,
Yeah.
and to be very, very meticulous, and not just accept everything that comes down the line.
Yeah.
We,
And it's kind of crazy. Sometimes it's not even just looking online and finding a story. Sometimes it's right in front of you. We were at I'm back to Stones River in Tennessee. When we were at the area that was the first day of battle out there, I was standing just kind of just taking in the land and just kind of observing and just kind of getting a feel for it. Almost trying to picture like what it was like on that, you know, New Year's Eve in 1862 and like what actually happened there. And out of nowhere, it was almost like like a mist that was just forming and coming out of the tall grass, and like it was the most bizarre thing in the world because it was
Wow.
like literally like a foggy mist, and then all of a sudden, a person came walking out of it, and I recognized him as a Union soldier because I could tell by the uniform, and I could start seeing a little bit of the color, and he had what I assumed to be blood like splatter all the way up his
oh,
torso, and he just had this horrified look on him and just looked at me, and all he said was "help me." And when he said that, I was like looking at him like in shock that like I'm physically looking at a spirit right now. And when I looked down, I realized he only had one leg, and I was like, "Oh, I know what happened to you. I'm so sorry." And I'm sitting there trying to think to myself like, "How do I help him?" Like that's my first instinct, is like, "How do I help this soul?" And right as I was trying to think of what to say to him back, he vanished. And I just like was looking around. I was like, "Did anybody else see that, or am I just like what is happening?" And when we finished our tour, we went into the gift shop to, thumb through some of the books that they have. And, because a lot of the battlefields have tailored books to the battle. And there's a book that was on the shelf that was called The Boy Soldier and his Encounters. And it was about a young boy that was only 12 that fought at Stones River. And I forget what page it was. We were just literally just thumbing through and come to a page where he was talking about walking the battlefield after the battle ended. And he literally walked over and explained the exact same soldier I saw in the exact same spot I saw him. And like my jaw hit the floor because it was down to every detail.
So when these people pass and they've lost a leg, they're still in that, whatever you want to call it, astral body where they've lost a leg.
Yes.
I would hope that if I lost a leg, that when I went over there, I'd at least have something back. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
It's a working theory, just like the paranormal field as a whole. I feel like there's very little, if any, truth or fact behind anything. But one thing I have learned is whenever I help a spirit move on, whether it's a soldier like that or if it's someone that like just needed someone to validate, hey, like I'm still here. Once you give them that validation and help them understand what happened to them, it's almost like they get themselves back. And I've seen that with a soldier that I worked with from the wilderness battlefield in Virginia. He was struck in the face by a bullet and, as you would imagine, shattered his jaw and everything, and he couldn't really talk. He was more or less communicating in sounds and how to use like the ovulus or devices that can spell out words or produce a word to communicate with us because he couldn't verbally talk. And I didn't realize at the time that these soldiers are still trying to communicate with how they were in life. So if that's how he was, he went out, he still presumably doesn't have a working jaw. And I didn't like put two and two together, but the second we worked with him and got him to understand, all of a sudden he was talking just like we are right now. And I was like, wait, how did this happen? And then now I'm trying to think, oh, well, obviously their energy, they're probably decided to go back to a form that they felt that they were most happy. So as a whole, and he's not the only one that's happened to, but it makes me wonder, how do they do that? And how is that even possible? Like I always want to know the why.
Yeah, because like one of my investigations, the house was haunted by a 12-year-old girl. Well, they estimated that she was like 12 years old, and they couldn't figure out who she was. And then they were going through some old family photos, and they came across this little girl, and they happened to be the occupant's grandmother.
Oh, wow.
She came back not looking like grandma,
Yeah.
but she came back looking like a 12-year-old. And I guess that she was happy being a 12-year-old. So, yeah. So it's like if I were to come back, if I kicked the bucket, I had to come back, I come back as this good-looking guy from the 70s.
Right. More power to you for doing that.
Doing disco, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, that got us going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Hey, Paul was the man. You still are the man, though. You people understand, man. You take care of business, man. The student's writing a book pretty much every other day, but definitely a book a week, an article a day. It's incredible. As long as I've been learning.
Thank you. And Steve and Zandine, I mean, if you guys kicked the bucket and you came back, would you come back to where you are right now or something?
Hey, Paul, you're not going to improve on this.
Yeah, I see. I hear you, Steve. I hear you, man.
Listen, I'd get rid of this gimpy knee. That's it.
You're gonna come back as Mothman just to screw with people.
Yeah, that's right. Start chasing cars and mess with people.
Yeah.
At least he's got to tell us the mystery of the Mothman. He's got to come back. Sage, man, like who's your number one Irish hero, man? Irish soldier, strong warrior. Who's the number one?
Yeah, so I would be lying if I didn't mention him because I've always looked up to learning about him and the roots. and that was their commanding general, Thomas Francis Marr. He was an Irish revolutionary that escaped Ireland in the 1840s, came to the United States, actually in exile from Ireland, and wound up in New York City. And a lot of the early onset of the war, a lot of the Irish were more or less fighting for a free Ireland and a escape from English oppression. And
Right.
he was called upon to be a part of a state militia in New York City, and they were known as the 69th York State Militia. And at the time of the beginning of the Civil War, at First Battle Manassas, he was just a captain in command of a company. But little to him, he would know that battle ended up setting up his whole career, as the 69th and their regiment that they were attached to were the only regiments to succeed on their mission on that first battle, and they end up recapturing the batteries on Henry Hill, and were able to help the Union Army escape from their disastrous first battle. And there's a lot of reports that because like the commanding colonel of the 69th was wounded and captured, but it was Thomas Marr that stood up and rallied the regiment to keep them pushing on and keeping them rallied. And there's reports and letters and notes from soldiers that were there from the other New York regiment that they were fighting with. And there was one soldier that stated, "Oh, who is that on the horse rallying the men?" And the response was, "Oh, that's Thomas Marr and his Irish boys." And like
Wow.
it was just like a rise to the occasion. And just as in the other side of that battle was Stonewall Jackson, that rose to his said call to fame. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny that all happened within 100 yards of each other. And no more than 3 months after that first battle, Manassas, he was then promoted to colonel of the now instated 69th York Infantry. And then he raised a whole brigade of Irish
Yeah.
immigrants and was promoted
Wow.
to general. And it was just like learning his story and how he came from an immigrant to commanding general of a whole brigade of around 3,000 men by the time of Battle of Antietam. It's mind blowing to me. And he wanted it to be just Irish soldiers.
Yeah.
And it's
What sign is he, man? Do you know what sign he is when his birthday was?
um I had it written down at some point, so I've done countless research on him. But
Oh, my last name is Smith, so it's got to be some Irish in there somewhere, man.
that's right. But yeah,
But that's incredible. So Thomas Marr, okay, I have to check him out, man. That sounds like really courageous.
yeah, he was one of a kind. He was a general that led from the front for the most part, until casualties and everything started getting higher and higher, and they kind of said, "Listen, dude, you can't be up front anymore."
We need you, yeah.
Yeah, but he never was afraid of shying away from being there with his men and being proud of who they were. And especially, the massacre that the Battle of Fredericksburg was, he wanted his men to stand out, and he just had three of the four brigades, or I'm sorry, three of the four regiments send back their battle flags to New York for repairs because they were all, war torn, and they only had one green battle flag, for the whole brigade. And he wanted his men to stick out, so he ordered them all to wear sprigs of boxwood in their kepis to, signify that
That's
they
good.
were Irish.
Okay.
And Irish are stubborn; they don't give up. And little, today would know that I think they knew going into that they weren't succeeding. That was known from the beginning that what the Union did that day was a death march, and there was nothing else to it. But they somehow pushed the furthest and were the closest to the stone wall. At the end of the day, and
Okay.
there was literally reports from General Pickett and the Confederate Army afterwards, when they were surveying just the mountains of dead bodies in front of them and the heights. And they said, to no surprise, those closest to our position were sporting sprigs of boxwood. It was the Irish Brigade. And it just, every time I read it just gives me chills.
Sage, has anybody from any of the TV channels contacted you, and they want you to do a documentary, be one of their experts talking about the Civil War or whatever?
No, I haven't been as far as that, but I was on a TV show a couple years. Well, was we filmed it a couple years ago. Just it's still in the process of being fully released. But the guys from the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, Chris Smith and Mike Gonzalez, they've
Oh
reached out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good friends.
That's a killer. That's a killer name, by the way. You know, Paul, you should hook him up with. How come him and Christian haven't hooked up? They're both big, war buffs. I mean, like they both go to the cemeteries. They're both down in history. I would think him and Christian could do a dynamite documentary together. Don't you think?
I want to hear what Sage says about the Wrath Chasers.
Yeah, so
Right.
I've been traveling with them since 2021. I go out to their public events that they have, and I met them for the very first time at Rolling Hills Asylum, and the very first time I met Chris, Mike, and Brandon, it was like I've known them my whole life. It was just like they were just so down to earth and just kind of loosened me up to like they're just people. Like everyone always like, oh, they're TV celebrities, but like when I met them, I was like this is somebody I could be friends with. And then I went to another event, and then another event, and another event. Before like I'm just like looking on their calendar, like to see where they're going to be at. And then I started traveling all over the place with them. I've been to Missouri State Penitentiary with them. I've been to places in Virginia with them. I've done New York, Pennsylvania with them. And while we were at Missouri State Penn, Mike pulled me to the side and he goes, "Hey, we're working on a project. Would you like to be a part of it?" And I just kind of looked at it. I was like, what? Like, explain what kind of project?" He goes, "Well, we had haunted towns, we had ghost asylum, and all were cool and all, but we want to do something self-produced that is our vision, how we want it, and run, and said the way we want our show to be run." And basically what we're doing is taking 10 people that we've met through events and taking them to different locations and filming it, and to see what happens when we have 10 different people of 10 different walks of life be in the same place at the same time, and see how that affects each location. And I kind of just sat and thought about it. I was like, that's genius. I was like, that's really cool. I was like, yeah, I'd be honored. And then about, I don't know, a month and a half after that investigation, I got notified that I was one of the 10 filming at St. Albans Sanatorium with them. And we ended up being episode 1 of their TV show Ghost Mob. And they have 4 episodes that they filmed. And they were originally filming for Prime Video, but Prime's been giving them a hard time and giving them issues with licensing and stuff. So they started trickling stuff out on Facebook, or on Facebook, on YouTube. And my episode's up on YouTube, and the second episode where they filmed at the old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee is out on YouTube as well on Prime Video. But there's still 2 episodes that they're trying to get out, but they're having issues with it. But
now, why were they taking off the TV?
The team themselves broke up. They had a falling out. Chris was the rightful owner to the name Tennessee Wraith Chasers, and after the last season of Haunted Towns, I guess they had the friends fall out. It happens, and somehow, some way, the one guy kept the name or got the name, even though he wasn't even a quote unquote co-owner of the team, and they didn't do anything with the name. And Chris rightfully wanted it because they still go around and do public events and go to Paracons and whatnot. So they wanted to still represent from the name that everybody knew him from. But since they lost the name and more or less the team, that's when they just dropped the Tennessee off and just went by the Wraith Chasers. And Chris, Mike, and Chris's brother Brandon stick together and go around and do this stuff.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, because I had heard that Zach kicked them off the TV show, the Travel Channel.
Yeah.
But I don't know. From what you're saying, it doesn't sound that way.
Yeah, I know for their show in particular, they just the team just broke up and had a falling out. But there are a couple other TV shows that were very, very highly rated, and then all of a sudden just vanished. And that's why I'm kind of like, is it them really just not getting renewed, or is there somebody saying, "Hey, I don't want the competition"? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's suspicious to me. That's why I like just sticking to myself. And if someone asks me to be a part of something, cool. If not, I just sit here and talk to my ghost and do my own my own little research.
Just,
I just
I have
digest myself.
I have a question. Have you ever encountered something like a phantom army?
Um, I guess in a sense, yes. Whenever I'm on the battlefields, it's almost like I step back in time. So
Right.
there will be times where, like, kind of goes back to losing time. Like it's almost like I'm stepping back into that said moment. And like I've heard drum and fife music on battlefields. I've heard phantom cannon shots, musket fire,
Wow.
orders being given. I've heard bugle calls. I've even heard a loud rebel yell at Stones River. Um, I've heard, heard a horse at Shiloh. So it's just like one of those things where if you're looking for it, it's not going to happen. But if you kind of just like walk around and just take it in, you'd be surprised what happens.
Well, there was a classic incident in about 1960 in Northumberland, England. A lady named Dorothy Strong's in a taxi cab, and they're going along. The cab stalls. The fare meter goes crazy, and they
Hmm.
see this phantom army manifesting. And it turns out it's the Battle of Otterburn from 1388. The reason they know that is because of they can see the uniforms.
Yeah,
And this thing has manifested before. And as it gets close to the taxi cab, it fades away, and eventually the whole thing goes away, and the taxi cab goes back to normal.
yeah,
And so it's interesting that the same kind of phenomena sometimes when a close proximity of a UFO comes to a car, it
yep,
stalls. And there's
yes,
even a classic report in near Marlington, West Virginia, where this W.D. Doc Priestley's cruising along the road. All of a sudden, his car stalls. He looks over to the left. There's a classic Bigfoot standing there. And his buddies they turn around, they're in a hunting bus. They see that he's not there. So they're coming back. Bigfoot recedes into the woods. He can start his car again. So he takes off again, gets not too far. We don't know how far.
mhm,
And then the car starts to shake and the engine burns out. He looks over and there's Mr. Bigfoot again, either his kissing cousin or the same Bigfoot, who knows. And it's funny because he didn't tell anybody about the Bigfoot until months later because he wanted to come back to that area with his buddies to go hunting. And he was afraid if he said he saw a Bigfoot, they
yep,
wouldn't come with him.
yeah,
So, but here you got this pattern,
yeah,
a phantom army, supposedly a Bigfoot, and a UFO, all causing the same type of phenomena,
yeah,
suggesting perhaps, even John Keel said he found that people that experience cryptids and UFOs would experience the same kind of physical effects,
yeah.
muscle ache, thirst, and so forth, suggesting perhaps
Mhm.
that in some cases, even though they seem like different phenomena, that perhaps there's a common denominator.
Yeah, and it's almost always, well, I don't want to say almost always, it's most of the time a residual thing. If you're bored and ever go online and just research ghost stories of Gettysburg, you'd be amazed of random Joes that don't even believe in ghosts and what they'll have happen. Over the anniversary of the battle, they always host a major reenactment out there every year. And there's a story every single year that in some form or fashion happens. And there was a little pretext during the Battle of Gettysburg. There was a regiment for the Northern Army that marched into the woods on the first day of battle, and almost the entire regiment was wiped out. And it was, they sustained heavy casualties, and they, people today still claim that they see them marching into the woods to never come out. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like I could see it as an investigator, but like I've personally never experienced anything to that magnitude until one year someone came out, and like said like in a video that he was one of the reenactors on the field that year's anniversary, and they were all just kind of just camping out, just chilling, waiting for the day's events to occur, when they saw a regiment size unit start marching right in between all the camps, heading right for the woods, like to the point like they literally looked like flesh and blood, people, saw the battle flag and everything, and they like looked at him like, "There's no battles going on right now. Like, where's this unit going off to?" And they said they literally watched him march right into the woods to never be seen again. And I was
Wow.
just like, "Whoa!" Like, I've never like thought that that was even possible.
But
I always see individuals. I've never seen a whole, regiment march like that before.
I don't know what I'd do if I've always hoped that if I had some kind of a paranormal experience, that I had the presence of mind to, even if I couldn't take the photograph, to at least focus on what's going on.
Yep.
And I mean, I had one kind of a weird paranormal experience, and I didn't document it even in my mind. I didn't. Just wasn't paying any attention, and just kind of went with it. And so. And what it was I went out to the TNT area late one night, drove back, had experienced a couple flashes of light, may have been nothing, get back to my motel room, and I open the door. The TV set turns on by itself and starts flipping through channels steadily. And I thought, nope, this doesn't happen to me. This happens to other people, and they tell me their story. So it's like my only really bizarre, but I didn't. I looked at the time. I thought, oh, I didn't have any missing time. But wait a minute, maybe did I? I mean, I should have documented everything.
Yeah.
I should have thought where, these flashes in the road. Should have come back the next day, figured out where that was to see if I could figure. I didn't do any of that. So I'm the worst paranormal investigator on the planet.
Don't feel bad. Even if, somebody like me who's got a camera 24/7. I've caught crazy stuff, but it's like whether I feel better, like Sage was saying, when I leave the house and I actually don't have it, I'm like, I know today I'll see something that
Yep.
I wish I had my camera. But either way, I just try to put it down and like just and then if you're a serious person that really tries to contact, like if you're a person that can go to, because like somebody like myself, I'll be like off of Ice House Road, which is like, and the foothill to see it, like going up towards Tahoe. There's bears, there's mountain lions, there's people with guns shooting. There's no rules. So if you up there and you're trying to meditate or get something, you can run into a lot of stuff. That's more than just what you're bargaining for. But to be clear mind and get your own modality to whatever you want to contact. You're gonna want the equipment that captures it some kind of way at some point. So, and then that gets expensive too, but right now, it's a good age of AI. You can make your own tools now. You can literally make your own stuff now. You don't have to pay all that.
Hey, you're like Steve was talking about phantom armies. There was a lot of phantom armies that were seen by multitude of witnesses, like Gettysburg. They saw the Confederate troops, and also too with the Gettysburg, they hear these phantom sounds of battle, and historical figures like George Washington have been seen.
Yes.
And, World War I soldiers, the Sami, and Rorke's Drift, which is the Zulu War reenactments. People have actually seen that. So, the Phantom Armies is fascinating. And I think that's all residual energy.
Yeah.
Right. It's got to be, doesn't it, if you're hearing sounds, muskets and drums and so forth, it's got to be residual, I would think.
Yeah, I want to touch on it. It's funny because it is actually in our Smithsonian archives, the story of George Washington and Gettysburg. The commander of the 20th Maine, Joshua Chamberlain, he actually wrote down in his notes crediting the spirit of George Washington for leading the regiment to Gettysburg.
Nice.
And I didn't believe it until I watched a documentary on it, and like they literally were going through the archives and pulled out the actual letter that Chamberlain wrote, and they were like reading it. And I guess when they were en route to Gettysburg, the end of June, they were approaching at night, and it was dark, and they reached a fork in the road and didn't know which way led to Gettysburg and which road led off. And he literally wrote in writing that he saw a man with a tri-point hat riding up on a horseback, waving like a sword, like saying, "Hey, follow me." And he didn't think anything of it, thinking like it was just one of the generals or someone like coming that was sent to get them, knowing that they were coming at night. And he, went in the direction of, the soldier on horseback, and obviously when he rode off, they, vanished into the night, but he followed, the way he went, and lo and behold, wound up in Gettysburg. And then later, during the second day of battle, when they were running low on ammunition and he didn't know what to do, he claims that George Washington was standing right beside him on that hill and told him, "Hey, you need to fix bayonets or else all is lost." And he gives credit to George Washington for his heroic action that he performed on Little Round Top.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it until they were literally reading his letter that he wrote days after the Battle of Gettysburg, claiming that he saw George Washington in Gettysburg. And I was like, is this like the very first ghost story? It's like, what is happening? This is crazy. It's all in our archives.
Yeah, I mean, if you get those good stories, and then the person that's saying it, I mean, you really believe them. At one point, you guys were both saying that Sage and Steve were both hitting on about spirits that, if you're talking to them all the time, where they might lead you or where not, how you discern them. But are you guys familiar with the original 007? The original, the Queen's original spy, not James Bond, but the dark magician 007, who, and he was talking to the spirits. He first started out for the Queen, like doing astrology. She had a real bad year, and she killed the people who were advising her before. So I got to get somebody new. So she gets John D, and he's
John D. Right. Okay.
Yeah, right. So that was the original 007. And
all right.
Yeah, so you know what he went through, talking to spirits. He ended up to the point where, he ended up the guy that he had a partner and his wife, they ended up like swinging, doing all kind of weird stuff that the spirit was making them do. And in the end, they really didn't get the information that he was thinking he was promised. But along the way, he was telling little bits of information to the Queen, enough to keep him